Welcome to the latest Watercolors Aquarium Gallery video brought to you from the Aquarium Rush Studios in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today we're asking the question, why the heck do we have to do water changes?
Oh, we're talking about water changes? I'm out of here.
I think water changes are probably the one thing every hobbyist doesn't do enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say every hobbyist, but most of them.
Hey, I've met some that do too many, but it's very rare.
So why bother? There's all these products out there that say, save on water changes. You don't have to use water changes if you use Acme non-water changer product. Right?
The tank cleaner, it gets rid of all your sludge and gunk and whatever you're supposed to be getting rid of. Who knows what that is?
By the way, it doesn't. They don't, and you do have to.
Mm-hmm.
Period. The number one most important thing you do for your fish tank is not feed them. It is water changes. I know it seems shocking, but your fish are better off not being fed than not getting water changes. Okay, you still got to
Definitely
feed
true.
your fish, but if you miss a day or two, it's not the end of the world for fish. Water changes, water changes, water changes.
Yeah, and I think the very simple explanation for why you need a water change is waste is going in the water, you've got to take it out.
Right.
You're feeding, fish are making waste once they eat the food, and it's got to come out somewhere. But also, that's not the only reason why you need to do a water change. We also have to be thinking about putting things back into the water.
Well, and getting to that idea of the waste has to go somewhere. I have gotten the question a few times, well, what happens in nature? And I'm like, well, what happens in nature is it's either a rainforest, a river, or an ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and that means current water.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're looking at killifish or bettas, those are areas that are getting daily rainfall, unless
Yeah.
things are getting really bad.
Yeah, bettas live in a dirty swamp. Do they really need water changes? Well, they're getting water changes. That water level is changing constantly.
Every time it rains,
Mhm.
and they live in rainforests.
Right.
Yeah.
They're getting a water change.
Right.
But that's another thing that the waste export is important, but the nutrient import is something that people don't talk about
Mhm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you refer back to our video where we were talking about how I was experimenting with different dosing regimens on these planet tanks behind us here, one of the things that came out of it was I don't dose my tanks, but I have great plant growth. And we figured out that it's because I'm very crazy with my water changes.
That's why we keep them around.
Yeah, yeah. But we figured out that in essence, I was fertilizing my plants
Mhm.
just by replacing everything so consistently with my water changes that I didn't have to do liquid supplements in my tanks.
That's a lot of the point, right? You're not just taking stuff out, but you're also putting stuff back in.
Recalibrating your water back to standard.
So I've had one of the classic excuses is, I haven't done a water change on my tank for 6 months and it looks great.
Mhm.
And my reply to that is very simple. How would it look if you did do water changes? How much better would your fish look? How much better would your plants look? If it's a saltwater tank, how much better would your corals look?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's an experiment that I've done personally in my own tanks because I run pretty heavily planted, pretty lightly stocked tanks. So nutrient buildup was never an issue. My nitrates pretty much always test 0. So I'm understanding a little bit about why we need to do water changes, still wanting to know what does happen if you just don't. And things were fine. My plants were fine, my fish were healthy, they were getting enough food, the nutrients weren't building up because my plants were using them. When I started doing weekly water changes again, my growth doubled because they actually had what they needed. There's no way with my dosing schedule that I was able to just replace everything that would normally be in tap water unless I was really working hard at it.
Yeah, that's just something that dosing in planet aquariums has come a long way,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
but we're not all the way there.
We're still dealing with a closed system.
Mhm.
Yep.
Nature is an open system. Water is flushing nutrients out. Water is flushing through rocks, flushing through sand, flushing through wood, putting more nutrients, minerals, things back into that water. That's an open system.
Mhm.
We have a closed system. The way we sort of replicate the open system is with water changes. We're flushing things out.
And topping off your tank does not count as a water
Does
change.
not count.
That's doing an oil change versus just topping off your oil. That is not the
Yeah.
same thing.
Exactly.
Or like, yeah, just wiping down with a wet rag is the same as taking a shower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Hopefully you guys get the idea out there that we are big proponents of water changes. We are big proponents of saying, if you can make it pretty good, why not make it better?
Yep. And if something goes wrong, first step, test. Second step, do a water change.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter what the problem is. It is always a good idea.
How big of a water change?
Oh, see, that's always the question. The size of the water change depends on the nutrient load of the system. Period. If you are keeping your nitrates in check on a system with fish, 10% once a week, probably plenty. Watch those nitrates. Nobody's going to keep their nitrates in check with 10% water change once a week, by the way, unless it's a really heavily planted aquarium with a very lightly stocked tank. Really, the recommendation is 20% once or twice a week. The once or twice a week is dependent on fish load.
Yeah.
Yeah. And smaller, more frequent is better than bigger, less frequent. So if every 3 months you empty your tank and fill it again, that's not going to be nearly as good for your livestock as just even doing a 5% every other day.
That'd be great. Yeah.
That would be a fantastic.
Bigger
schedule.
is great for most situations too. You can do a 30 or 40% water change once a week, and things will be better. If you're curious, try it.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed.
In case you're wondering what we mean by me doing crazy, I do 50% water changes once or twice a week. So if you want to know what you got to do to not dose, that's the trick.
And we'd usually steer you away from doing much more than 50% in most tanks, just because at that point you're risking big swings.
Keeping balance in check. Well, there we go. Even though it's water change, you still got to find a way to keep it fun. Thanks a lot for watching, and keep those hands wet.